Today we're going to be looking at Isaiah chapter 6. And this is kind of the beginning, not the beginning of the book, but really the beginning of when his life in a call, particularly that he had for his life, this prophet, came about. And this is a great story. The imagery is probably either he is at the physical temple at the time, when he is at that time of his life, or it might be a vision or a dream. He might be there and have it, or he might be asleep and having it, but we do hear there's things going on, and there's symbolism used in some of these things that give us sense that he's in a temple area. But more than anything else, we see that there's this exhilaration because he has met God. And there's this, 2 parts excitement and 1,000 parts fear almost, or overwhelming, because he's met God. I don't know if you've ever been in a place like that where you just know God is there. They're not all the time, and they're fleeting perhaps, but you might have had a moment or two in your life when you knew that God was there, another was there, so powerful. And this happens to Isaiah here. The text begins in Isaiah 6, and it says this. It says, it marks it with a year. In the year of King Uzziah died, Isaiah says, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him stood the seraphim. These are angels, okay? The 6-winged angels, okay? They each had 6 wings. 2 cover their face, 2 cover their feet. They're flying. It's all imagery and stuff, but it's also these beings are communicating to him in some way, vision, or maybe he's at the temple and this is happening. He's in a vision, or maybe he's dreaming, but God is communicating some things to him. And this is what he says. They cried out over and over, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the Lord of armies. The whole earth is full of his glory. Ha ha! Yeah, it is. And then it says the whole foundation of the place shook. You've been in an earthquake? It's shaking right now, right? It shook him, and a loud voice called out and shook from the loud voice. And then the house was filled with smoke, or the space was filled with this dense cloud. These are all imageries of God's presence that have been that were part of the temple and part of their story of Israel when they wandered in the desert. And then when he is in this situation, he realizes who God is and who he's not himself. And Isaiah says this, woe am I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips. I dwell among a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of angel armies or hosts. And then, one of those angel seraphims came, those servant messengers, and having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken from tongs from the altar. Again, this is imagery. He touched his mouth and said, behold, that I have touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away. Your sin is atoned for. And I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for me? And he said, here am I. Here am I, send me. There's a sense that in this story, Isaiah encounters God in a way that he previously hadn't. And in the process of encountering God, he realizes how broken and how different God is, how big God is, how small he is. And then he's just like, woe to me, I am coming undone. I've seen the King, and I know that I'm not all that. And then God, always in grace, he comes and sends this imagery of an angel coming and actually touching his lips. I love that it touches his lips, because his lips are what were used to proclaim what God was calling him to do. Whatever I'm a man of unclean lips means, it certainly means this, that maybe he used them before for other things. Maybe he was, the biggest trash talking Israelite there ever was, right? Or, I don't know. But what I know is this, that he recognized that in his woeful overwhelmness, that God wanted him to know that in that place, God forgave him. He took away the guilt, and he atoned for, dealt with this sin forever. So out of this place of forgiveness and even his own brokenness, God touched his lips, which then became the vehicle that he used to give God glory. Are there things in your life that aren't so gloriful, aren't so great, are actually pretty messed up, that God might want to touch with the coal of his grace, with the life of Jesus, and change to make them the very vehicle, and even particularly to people you might be called to particularly, or circumstances or situations. God, in this moment, revealed to Isaiah that he was shaped particularly for ministry as he understood he was grace forgiven and loved. And then he responded, because God was already ahead of him, said, who's going for me? I'm already going. Who's going to partner with me? And Isaiah said, here I am, send me. Isaiah was, we know through the book, was people rejected him. They didn't like him, but it didn't matter, because at the end of the day, he was doing what God was calling him to do. And so I wonder about this. I wonder today, how has God loved you, forgiven you, and filled you with grace, maybe? And where in the places where you've experienced God's grace most might be the very places God might be sending you into as a redemptive act? I'd encourage you to read Isaiah 6. I would encourage you to listen and talk with God about that and ask God that question. Where have you touched my life with forgiveness and grace, like that altar, the tongs? Maybe it's your tongue, but maybe it's somewhere else. And how might that forgiveness and healing be used to go on behalf of him? Have a fun conversation. We'll see you tomorrow morning.